And then lots of people of all backgrounds have sat in this chair and were amazed about the precision of the output. I'm mostly listening to music, right? Not
Yeah.
producing. Like,
Yeah.
my
Yeah. Yeah.
girlfriend, she sits in the chair and she's like, yeah, well, this really is good. Like, you can
Yeah,
tell.
yeah, yeah. Hey, what's up? It's Jesko again from AcousticsInsider.com, where I teach home studio acoustic treatment techniques for audio professionals, but without all the voodoo. I've got another special episode for you today because I'm joined by Paul Adenau from Paris. Welcome, Paul. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
And Paul basically went through my Build a Better Bass Trap course and Absorber Placement Hacks. He went through the entire process of building the panels, treating his room, and I wanted to show you guys the results because it's really, really interesting. And I just wanted to show you that it's possible to do all this stuff, and with the right technique, with the right approach, with a systematic approach, you can really get results that translate well. And I hope that Paul is going to confirm all of this. Also, maybe not, but we'll see in a second. Yeah, Paul, maybe do you want to just introduce yourself? What do you work on? What's the kind of what do you do in the studio? What do you use the studio for?
Right. So I've got a bit of a dual background here. So I'm a software engineer working in audio and in free software.
Cool.
So yeah, I've got a good understanding of lots of things in the space, but I also don't understand lots of other things in the space. Um, as far as music, I produce jungle, drum and bass a bit, but mostly
Sweet.
old school jungle. So that has lots of sub bass.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so mostly it's going to be producing, and also the occasional DJ mix,
Mm-hmm.
right? And something I also do is just live improvised modular techno, just on a modular
Oh,
synth.
crazy.
So the
Sweet.
space
Yeah.
is used for that. There is almost never any recording. I
Mm-hmm.
have some mics, but I don't really record in this space. So it's the speakers, the computer, some gear, and my ears. Essentially, it's that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So very much focused on production and in particular kind of bass music as well. Can you maybe just like take us back to before you started with this room, before you started or put the treatment in the room? What was it like working in there before? Were you in this room like right from the start? Like how long have you been there, and like what was it like before you did the treatment?
Right. So I moved here. I moved here in 2020 in February. Um, and for the longest time, I had very old speakers that were 15 years old and not very expensive. Um, they weren't positioned carefully. Um, and yeah, I don't think they were really good. So the first step I did was gift myself a very nice new speakers with a sub.
So you
Um,
got the Genelecs, correct?
I've
Which
got the
ones do you have?
Genelec system, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
8330, a pair of that, and a subwoofer. And so that has all the DSP things that can measure and correct for the room, right? And so that was the first step. I was still doing works in the apartment, right? So I was focused on not doing the acoustics of the studio. I was focusing on painting the walls and everything. Um, but so it was, yeah, it was positioned roughly, and the Genelec system had to perform some correction that made life easier already.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, enormous boosts and dips in the low end.
Yeah,
Um,
I was just gonna ask what's the space like? What are the like particular challenges that you noted with this in this room?
so I'm lucky that it's perfectly rectangular,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there, I have no symmetry issue. My desk is positioned in the middle of the room, so that's fine. Uh, the problem I have is that the ceiling is not particularly high. It's normal by Parisian standards, but like it's not particularly high. Um, so and the resonance, you can listen to it in the room. Like if you go in the room and it doesn't have any treatment, you're just talking with somebody, you're clapping your hands. It's very, very long tail,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you put a subwoofer in it and you play like some whatever jungle track, and then it resonates forever.
Yeah.
Uh, it feels like it's endless, just one
Yeah.
sub stab, and yeah, it's impossible to mix, obviously. So the Genelec system was able to detect this and duct particular annoying frequencies in a sub, which made it better, but still, like, it can only go so far. So then what I did was follow the thing, the procedures that didn't necessitate any work except doing them, right? So what you talk about very often for good reasons was the bass center technique, right? So because of the room was mostly empty, it was extremely easy for me to follow. It was essentially a chair, speakers, sub, and desk, right? So there was not much to do. It was just like you put the speaker, position it carefully, and then you do it, and then you follow the worksheet. So that was easy for me to do. That made things better in terms of sub
Even
positioning, for example.
even in the untreated room, it was okay for you to go through that procedure. I know that can be tricky sometimes.
I think it took a longer time than it would have taken with the treatment. That's for sure, because you second guess yourself constantly. You don't
Yeah.
know if because the like this particular sub resonance frequency was so long that it made it hard to understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And so you start second guessing yourself. But I'm pretty confident that it was better after positioning and before doing anything else than it was before repositioning and not having done anything, just with the GLM treatment system engaged, right?
Yeah.
So then the positioning was done, redid the measurement with the Genelec system. Obviously, the correction was different because the sub was positioned differently. But yeah, it was better. The sub frequency was hard to work, like the sub frequency region was hard to work with. It's often the case of you're doing a baseline, right? And you've got, depending on the scale you're working with, some notes will go into the resonant frequency and they're going to be extremely loud. And so not thinking very hard about it, you start like lowering the velocity of the bass note, which is wrong because that's so then you go into another system, you listen in the living room, whatever, it's off, obviously. So they start reaching more and more for the headphones each time. So it becomes an endless cycle of tuning things with a very long feedback cycle, which gets tiring, right?
Yeah. So that was kind of your workaround.
Yeah.
You went back to headphones
So
very
I
frequently.
got like the reference sennheiser, the one everybody uses, and corrected with an EQ, right? So a convolution response that offsets the sub, so it's like mostly flat. And that was the way I was balancing things, right? That works okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have any other option at that point in time. But yeah, that was an okay workaround considering the circumstances.
So
Then what
then,
happened?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my obvious next question is then what made you decide, if you were able to work more or less, what made you decide to still take that next step and also invest in the courses?
Yeah, right. So there is this thing where I could work, but it was too long to get a track in a way that it was listenable or usable in DJ mix, right? It was jarring otherwise. Like you,
Yeah.
you mix a
Yeah.
track into another track, and even if the track you're coming from isn't from the greatest music producer and the best mixer around, you could tell. Like
Yeah.
mine was sounding amateurish and unbalanced. Even though I was checking on headphones, but I was probably doing that tired at the end of the session. So yeah, it's and it was taking too long, right? So I was taking too long to mix, and it's honestly I prefer writing music than mixing, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a music producer. That's what I want to do. So then I don't remember which video it was, but maybe it was a video about like poor absorption, and you mentioned that it was this course, right? And I was like, well, I'm pretty handy with my hands. So, and I've got some spare money. I just bought a next like very expensive speaker system, but it's in a room that it cannot perform as it should perform. And I was like, yeah, well, it's an investment, but I have the money, that's fine. It's gonna make my life easier, supposedly. I knew that treatment fixes a bunch of issues, and you were clear that it would fix some of the issues I could see on the measurements. Um, what made me start the whole process was not the bass response was part of it, but the most important thing was the decay. Like the reverb was too big in the room, and my constant struggle was putting the right amount of reverb, and and I had no clarity in the upper part of the spectrum. Everything was confusing, sorry. And again, I was checking the levels on headphones, but checking reverb levels on headphones doesn't yield very good results, I find.
It's hard, yeah.
So what I was then doing was using a piece of software I found that rematrixes the channels into the headphone so that it sounds a bit more like a room. Because again, I had no other solution, right? I knew about this piece of software because sometimes I'm on the road and I just got Ableton on my work laptop and I just have good headphones but no speakers. And you're in the hotel room and you want just to chop up a drum break or whatever. And yeah, I mean, you do what you need to do, right? So that worked okay. But all in all, it was a series of workarounds that were stacked into each other. And eventually I was like, yeah, well, I've got time, I've got money. And the course had came out, or maybe, I don't know if it was the first time we offered it, but I was like, yeah, well, okay, so it's a few €100, that's fine. Then it's going to be some material, that's fine. The time I have it, that's also fine. And it's going to be an interesting project, right? And so yeah, I started doing it. I think I took a long time. I did all the design first. I did 3D modeling because I wasn't sure. I was second guessing myself about the whole construction thing.
Okay, yeah.
I did that very much in the same line you show in the course, right? So there is very little differences.
Cool.
Then I was like shopping around for the materials here in Paris, double checking what kind of rock wool I could be getting, where to get it, shopping for the wood online, getting the fabric, checking the various things, right? There was no rush. I was just like, doing it over the course of a few months, and then eventually, I think, I sent back an email saying like, yeah, this is what I'm looking at, 10 panels. Send you the email with the positioning, some screen capture of the 3D modeling software with some measurements overlaid. You came back with some positioning suggestions that I followed. In fact, I just did what you said to do. Then I was like, yeah, this is good. So I went back to my shopping list, ordered the wood, ordered the rock wool, got the fabric from a shop. Everything got delivered. Set aside 2 weekends.
Nice.
Get going. Just drilling and screwing the panels together. And over the course, I think I took a lot less time than the estimate that is provided. But I'm not sure why.
Maybe because you're very handy with power.
Yeah, well,
and,
I've done lots of work in the apartment before, so so that might explain it. Also, all my wood was cut to perfection.
Perfect.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was delivered to me.
Very,
all the pieces were delivered to me in my apartment. Each little piece of wood had a sticker that would tell me what it was. Because sometimes between two pieces of wood, you have like 4 millimeter difference, right? Because you're just making room for the fabric. So you have identical buttons, but like one is like 4 millimeters shorter than the other. The stickers helped for that. So that was very nice. And I had everything, all the hardware, tools, all the screws, everything was like carefully laid out. I had a kind of an assembly chain thing, right?
Did you do it all on your own?
Yeah. It's easy enough. I've got a big table in the living room, and I just use the big table to. I was
Sweet.
doing I was doing it depending on which part. I was doing it I think 2x2 or 4x4, right? So panels, because my table is big enough, so it's like it's essentially was an assembly chain kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
like eight
Perfect.
screws, bzz, 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 you
Yep.
you do everything, minimal change of drilling bits, so everything was like carefully orchestrated so that
Perfect.
yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah.
That was
Great.
essentially
That's what I want to hear.
the
Yeah.
time flew by. You put on some music,
Yeah.
get yourself a beverage.
Yeah.
You have everything, and now you just need to drill some holes and to screw some
Yeah.
screws. Um, One thing that hurt my hand a bit was
Oh no.
stapling all the fabric, because
Yeah.
we are looking at I don't know how many staples per panel,
Yeah. A lot.
and and that's 10 panels. So at the end of the day, I was sore on my right hand, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It was over and it was all looking good. The fabric was beautifully draped on the frame. So there was no stretching marks. It was looking it from an angle with the light, and yeah, it was looking all
Perfect.
right, because I
Yeah.
figured like I'm gonna see those every day for a long time. Might as well make them look nice.
Yeah.
But it's not too hard, I don't think.
Yeah.
Um,
Sweet.
yeah.
Do you remember going into the process, kind of like if there was anything that you were particularly worried about, where you were just like, "Ooh, I don't know. Like, I hope this is actually going to work." Like,
There
is there
is
anything in
two
particular?
things I was worried about.
Yeah.
First was making mistakes about when ordering the woods, right? The
Mm-hmm.
wood is getting more expensive
Yeah.
these days, yeah. So, and because every little piece of wood, you're ordering it a large number of times because you're making 10 panels. If you make a mistake, that's an expensive mistake in terms of
Yeah.
euros, but also in terms of time, right? So
Yeah.
because I'm getting everything delivered, there is a lead time, etc. So what I ended up doing is make a big Excel sheet with all the
Mm-hmm.
measurements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I took the measurements, modeled in a software.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Everything was fit. I had made a mistake, right? So doing the 3D modeling parts saved me weeks and some euros.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had a friend who's a carpenter, but not like he's making a big uh, wood structure houses, right? So
Okay.
not the kind of small things we're dealing with
Sure.
here.
Not
He's
like
making
furniture.
entire
Yeah.
houses.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, well, I have access to this guy, so I just sent him like my 3D model. Looked around and said, yeah, this is all right. This looks all right. Looking at the Excel sheet, that looks all right. He tells me it's going to be structurally okay. Like it's not going to bend. There is enough support. There is enough of everything. The wood is the right type, and also the wood is of the right thickness for the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this double check. But yeah, the first thing was essentially making mistake myself. That would just being costly in time of money, and also motivation, right? If you make mistake, uh, you're almost about to start this big project, but you can't. That's annoying.
Did you find enough guidance in the course
Yeah.
to kind of yeah?
There was just the correct amount of guidance. In fact, yeah, I just followed everything to the letter. It seems
Perfect.
like
Yeah.
I don't think I've made any meaningful changes. I just
Yeah.
adapt the measurements that were suggested to
Yeah.
the size, the thickness of the wood that was available from the supplier.
Yeah.
Finding the rock wool was I was a bit of a hunting down the various characteristics of the wool,
Yeah.
so that was a bit hidden on the website, but it was
Yeah.
available.
Yeah.
And finding a supplier for that was not too hard. And then the other thing I was unsure about is not unsure about because I knew I needed to do it, but what was interesting for me is how to secure the panels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially on the ceiling, because I've got two of those panels are just above me right now, and they are they are suspended with little chains. So that was like how to securely put the panels on the walls and the ceiling with techniques that is clearly shown on the course, like little chains and everything. That was easy. That was easy, but drilling in the ceiling, I wasn't sure about because it's a very, very, very hard slab of concrete, and
All
that
right. Mm-hmm.
requires a special, very powerful drill. Like if I go
That's
with my
right.
normal drill, I cannot
No.
make a dent in it.
No, no, no.
So I was thinking about getting the right screws. I don't want to drill too deep, but I need screws that can support each panel's weight, which is not too it's not too heavy, but still,
Yeah.
I had to make sure that it would, because it's directly over my head, right? There is this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was the second bit. Everything else was long, but not hard.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it takes some time, but if you just follow the steps, it's not
Yeah,
hard.
it's not
It just
hard.
takes a bit of time. Did you build a test panel before to get started, just to make sure that everything fits together, or
I
did you?
I did I did one panel entirely just
Perfect.
to get a hang of the process. You know,
Yeah,
how often do I see myself changing drill bits, and can
yeah.
I streamline this?
You're a
Uh,
proper engineer. It's
yeah,
clear.
yeah, and yeah, well, in fact, I am. So you know, um, and then and also, yeah, that was a test drive thing.
Yeah,
Did I miss anything? Like, am I missing screws? Am
yeah,
I missing whatever?
yeah, yeah. How does the
So,
stapling work? Does the fabric fit and all this stuff, right?
right. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So I did one to test drive the process, and then it was, yeah, yeah, doing 2x2 or 4x4.
perfect. Yeah,
Again, it did one, and then, and then two, and then it was like two, four and four.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. How
Once
was
you get
it? Yep.
put in some
Please.
good music, it's like, you know, it's you get in the flow and it
Yeah.
goes like that, right? Yeah.
So then tell me about like positioning the panels, putting them in the room as you were kind of mounting them. What was
Right.
that process
So
like? What was the experience like? Because those things change quickly, right? You start putting up the
right.
panels, and it goes like, and
Yeah.
suddenly
Yeah.
the
It's
room
like
sounds completely
mind
different.
blowing. It's mind blowing. Right. So I had all the 10 panels in my living room where I was doing this work because it's my biggest room and it's got a big sturdy table, right?
And that's
Um,
where you sent me the picture with just the big wall
yeah,
of
it's just
absorbers.
like
Yeah,
a big wall of like 10 panels. I thought it was a funny
it's
picture.
pretty
So
funny. Yeah, yeah.
it's just like in a big living room, 10 panels, identical 10 panels. Yeah. So then what I ended up doing, I was very curious about the impact of a low amount of panels in a room, right? So I did, uh, what I did was I did the four panels that are behind the speakers first. Then I did uh, take a room EQ wizard measurement. I was like, yeah, okay, well, this certainly fixes some of the waterfall graph, right? So some of the annoyances were were not present anymore, which was making me even more eager to put more panels in there, right? So it's like you only put four, and it's very nice. Then I was doing the wall because those behind the speakers don't need any mounting, right? So
Right.
they're just
Easy.
stacked on top of each other. You just slide them essentially. Then I did the measurements to put four panels on the left and right side. Right? So essentially in between the speakers and my ears. Not in between, but like on the wall, on the wall. Yeah. And so because that was easy, right? Just drill in the wall and just put them. So then retook a measurement. It was even nicer. But obviously, at this point, I was sitting at my desk and just listening to some music, and you can tell the precision is increased. You can tell. So I was doing the thing I did when I received my Genelec speakers is re-listen to some of the music you know extremely well, And that's very rewarding when you
Yeah.
start putting. So I was 8 panels out of 10 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Then um, I started doing the ceiling mounted ones. So that requires that is a bit more complicated. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
not horribly complicated. I was doing it in hard mode because I was alone, um, but it's manageable. Turns out you can mount panels on the ceiling alone. Uh, it's perfectly doable. Um, and then yeah, so at this point everything was set up,
Yeah.
and I was just sitting at my desk listening to music with a smile, because no measurement had happened at this point, but you could tell, like you,
Yeah.
you could immediately tell it was. And so I fired up a couple of Ableton projects, immediately redid the mix, like you
Right.
just like, bam 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 on the faders, just
Yeah.
really releveling the whole track,
Yeah.
right? Taking the sense with reverb, just adjusting that, decay of the reverb, immediately changing that. It's extremely fast to work.
Yeah.
And at this
Amazing.
point, there was no remeasurement. And at this point, also, I'm pretty sure I didn't redo the Genelec remeasurement, right? It was like just the panels in the room. That's it.
Yeah.
With the old Genelec thing. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Was that kind of the biggest revelation for you? Just the difference in sound, or like was there what was like the biggest aha moment for you after going through this, where you were just like,
It
this is
was
it?
yeah. It was essentially it's something that can describe as clarity. You hear
Mm-hmm.
everything. You
Yeah,
hear as if someone had cleaned your ear very thoroughly,
yeah,
and you couldn't hear before.
yeah.
It's really mind blowing what it
So
does.
talk to me about we're working in the room now. So you've been in there for it's been like what 2 weeks, 3 weeks, four
No,
weeks,
it's
something like that.
a few months actually because
Okay, a
I
few months, perfect, even
yeah,
better.
it's a few months.
Yeah, so
Uh,
to tell me about what your experience has been like in these few months since, like where are you at now? What are you really happy with still? What are you just like, oh, this is the game changer? And is there maybe something that you're not so happy with yet, where you're saying, oh, this could still use some improvement?
so generally, I'm very happy with everything. It's completely positive.
Yeah.
The thing that there is two aspects of this. The first aspect is that it's more enjoyable to work in this room, right?
Mm.
It's more enjoyable. Uh, you don't second guess yourself as often, right?
Mm.
So my process is that work on a track, right? I do some. It depends if I'm in producing or mixing mode, right? But let's say I'm producing. I've got some ideas laid down, some arrangement, and then I do rough mix down levels. Just levels. Then it's probably late because I work during the day, right? So I do that in the evening. I slap some levels so that it matches some listenable levels. So then bounce that, goes into an MP3, goes onto my phone. Then I go and listen to it on my living room system, or in the metro while going to work on in-ear monitors. What I use day to day. I used to find that it was very frustrating before this process
Mm-hmm.
because I would make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't find that's the case anymore.
Interesting.
And um, there is multiple things that have changed. I'm getting better at mixing, I
Yeah.
think. Um, I've been doing lot more music than I used to do over the past year. So I'm getting better, obviously. But the panels, I can tell that there was a point in time at which my mixes didn't need as many revisions to sound good, right? Not saying they are amazing mixes, but they you could play them on the radio, in a community radio as part of the DJ mix, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't be jarring. Um, and so now it's about the music really. I don't
Yeah.
spend as much time fighting mixing. I just spend time writing the music, right?
And that's exactly what we
Making
want, right?
Yeah,
Perfect.
making good sound design decisions.
Yeah.
Uh, when there is a problem, then I hear it and
Yeah.
I can just correct.
Yeah.
I just slap an EQ and like duck some
Yeah.
resonance thing that's annoying or whatever. When the reverb is too big, well, there you go. Just like immediately, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, since then I've been doing the same thing, bouncing tracks in the evening, sending them to the phone, and re-listening in the morning. And I find that more often than not, I don't go back the next day and spend 2 or 3 hours fighting the mix.
Hmm.
Just like, yeah, well, it's not finished. It's good enough. And
Yeah.
I just write like I start working on another track.
You just move on. Yeah.
Yeah, I move on because if I want to send a few tracks to someone, I can just get the MP3s and send them. They are in my rendered project folders, and at least you can convey the idea of your music across, and the person is not going to be disturbed by the fact that the sub bass is either tiny or overpowering the entire mix or whatever, or the snare hit is like destroying his or her ears, right? Um, so that's fine. Uh, it's a bit of a confidence boost, also.
Sweet. Is there
Yeah.
is there like a particular thing where you already noticed that your skill level has like upgraded? Where you're just like, have you learned something where you're just like, huh, now I know how to do this, which I didn't know how to do before?
Yeah, it. I think it comes from the shortened feedback loop. You
Hmm.
hear what you want to hear, and so immediately when you're trying to learn a new thing or you're adjusting some VST or hardware, you know that you hear what is there
Yeah.
essentially instead of some artifact
Yeah.
of the monitoring system.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned that previously, but I don't reach for the headphones very often right now. Whereas it would be a part of the every session, like uh, like getting the headphones and verifying subs would be the end of any session
Yeah.
before. I know I'm like, yeah, whatever. I know it's all right.
Yeah.
So and in fact it is, because the next day I listen to a completely different monitoring system, which is like speaker in the evenings, in the treated room, and in the morning is quite good IEMs on a phone in the Paris metro. So like absolutely nothing. And they sound all right.
Yeah.
They sound all right. So what I
Amazing.
usually do then is like make little notes on the note app on the phone and say, yeah, well, modify this, modify that. But it used to be only about the mixing, those
Yeah.
notes. And now it's about like, well, change the arrangement there,
Yeah.
or like need a different pad sound or whatever,
Yeah.
you know? So it's not the same kind of notes I make.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's not always perfect, but
Sure.
it's nice and day.
Yeah. So is there something that you'd still like to improve about the room? I mean, is there something where you're definitely like,
Um,
with the experience you've got now, this would be the next step if you were to do something, or is there something that you're still kind of
uh,
unhappy with, but you still need to work around?
I I don't know that I'd modified things right now. I think the speakers are good. The panels, the 10 panels I've built, improve things so dramatically that for now I don't think I will do more acoustics things.
Yeah, perfect.
It can be that if I change the amount of furnitures in the room and that kind of thing, I might remeasure, maybe move things a bit. Um, but yeah, for now, uh, yeah, it's been really about the music production.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect.
that's which I guess is a success, right? Because you do
Yeah.
this thing that think would help, you do it, it helps. Well, that's over.
Yeah. How much money did you invest all in all? Like including the
Oh,
courses, what was the
um,
budget for the whole thing?
I don't think I looked too carefully at the budget because I had some spare money. And really, it is the things I like to do the most, producing music. So at the end
Sure.
of the day, it's
It's a good investment. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
But
I
ballpark roundabout.
Yeah, ballpark. Ball. I think the wood was rather expensive, because I got it all cut and delivered. Um, so the wood was a few €100, maybe 4 or 5,
Mm-hmm.
for 10 panels. Also, it looks
Yes.
nice.
Yeah,
It looks nice. It's
that's on
completely
the high end
flat.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks nice. It's completely flat, so
Mm-hmm.
all the panels look completely identical. Uh, yeah, the look is good. It was all clearly labeled. It was like very nice service. The rock wool, I think, was €120 for
Mm-hmm.
the amount I needed. I still have some spares because of the way it was shipped by big blocks of was it? Yeah, it was 10 slabs of 7.5 centimeters, and each of my panels is 15,
Mm-hmm.
and they were longer than I wanted, so I had to cut them. So I have just some spare.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so there's that. Screws and everything was, I don't know, not very expensive. All the power tools and everything I had already, so didn't have to invest there. A stapler, followed the advice to get a good one, and I understand why now, because it's the only, yes, it's the only part that was a bit, my hand was a bit sore at the end, and I
Yeah.
can't imagine if I got the cheap one.
Can you
Um,
imagine that? We used to do tens, if not hundreds, of these panels with like the cheapest stapler back in the day.
yeah,
It's like it was crazy. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Sore
that's
hands like
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's like just yeah, closing your hands with very high force so many
yeah.
times per panel. And fabric, I got a relatively nice fabric in a shop in Paris. That must be in the order of 80-ish euros, 100 maybe.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
But so the whole thing was below €1,000 in the end.
I think so. I think it was. It must have been either below €1,000 or just €1,000
Yeah,
if I'm
very close. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So, and in terms of hours, not very long either, like a weekend and a half, not working maybe 6 7 hours per day.
yeah,
So that'd be, I don't know, 20, give or take. That's
yeah,
the building. The
yeah.
ordering and design, etc., took was spread over so many months that I don't know.
And but
But
I mean, and also you took your time with this. You really like
oh
went on
yeah,
a
I
deep
did.
dive, and you took your time. You did proper 3D models. I mean, this is
Yeah,
something that I go through in the course. That you definitely want to plan this out properly. I kind of recommend to just do it on pen and paper because it's easier.
yeah,
But obviously, anybody who wants to do this, go like the extra mile and do it in 3D.
yeah,
That's fine. But it's worth doing that. Um, and you really went all out on
yeah.
that.
I took my time in between, I guess, ordering the course and finishing the everything. It was a long time, just because life, right? Sometimes
Yeah,
you're just doing other things. Um, but yeah, there was a couple stages. First was watching the videos, obviously. Um, Second was just planning, getting how big I want the panels to be compared to the room, finding everything I need to do, like big shopping list, then finding where to buy all that. So mostly online for me, but not exclusively. Finding the fabric that looks okay, is has the correct properties. You won't be bored looking at it for the longest time, all that. So shopping and delivery was fairly quick, and building was fairly quick. In fact, yeah, when I when you told me, yeah, it was fine, like the design looks fine, just reposition those panels. I was like, yeah, well, there you go. Just go onto my shopping carts on the various websites, click, 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 and ordered everything. Shipping was fast, and then I stacked everything in my living room and started building when the weekend arrived. So
perfect.
yeah,
What I'm curious about is obviously like 10 panels isn't all that much. You could have fit a lot more in the room, and I
yeah,
think if we kind of followed the entire process to the T, or the planning, the full planning, then you would have probably put 20 panels in that room.
yeah.
What made you decide to just stick with the 10? Um, And yeah. Let's start.
Uh,
Let's just
I
leave it at that
think
for now.
it's just a way of just doing 10 and see what it sounds like,
Okay.
essentially. There was this thing where the rock wool was conditioned in slabs multiples of 10,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, yeah, well, I can order uh two 10x slabs, get that, get the wood, get everything by 10, put 10 panels and see how it fares, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, well, that's all right. Seems to be useful enough. I think in one of my uh, first email I sent you was I'm doing 10, but I was like I don't think I can stop there. Like I was gonna maybe do another round of other I don't know how many panels. Um, because the room allows it, right? It's dedicated room. Um, there is this annoying door in the corner. So positioning panels in the corner is a bit annoying, but might move the door. So I don't know. But yeah, I did 10. Everything's in the room now. It sounds really nice.
I mean, it's great to
Maybe,
see that even with
yeah,
just 10, how far
yeah.
you got. Yeah.
And so maybe it's just a matter of me getting better at mixing
Yeah.
and training my ears. And maybe in 1 year time, I will have improved uh, hearing, or I will need more precision. At
Or
which
you'll
point,
want more precision. Yeah.
yeah, right.
But
And
that's
then at
kind
this
of how it
point,
goes. It's like
yeah,
you kind of
it has to
level
be,
up,
yeah,
you level up your skill, then you notice some problems with the room, so you improve the room, then you have the ability to improve your skill again, and
yeah.
so that's how it works. Yeah,
No,
that's why I recommend in the course to take it in steps, and that's why
yeah.
it's laid out in a way so you can do it this way. Yeah.
I'm a music software professional, but I'm not a mixing like I'm not an audio
Mm.
engineer. I do computer engineering about audio. That's one thing, but I don't mix records for a living or anything, right? So yeah, there's something to be said about doing it in steps.
Yeah.
10 panels gave me the tools I needed to enjoy what I was doing and certainly to improve the output of what I was doing. But it's perfectly plausible that in 1 year's time I'm gonna go back, order 10 more panels, which is gonna be easy because it's all designed now. You know,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
go
And you've
and
got everything ready to go. Like
yeah,
it's all
I've got
the
my shopping
info is
lists.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. It's easy. Of course, the wood is going to be even more expensive at this point, probably. But
Let's hope not, but who knows? Yeah. Mm.
yeah. But the hard part is designing, and then the rest is quite funny actually.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
have it's like I don't know how many hundreds of kilos of wood in your living room, and you're just having sawdust everywhere because you're
Yeah.
drilling
Yeah.
so many holes, and it's like it's nice. And at the end, you look at your 10 panels and like, yeah, I made that. That's pretty cool. And then you
Yeah.
put them in the room, and you're so happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe let's segue. Let's use that as a segue to talk about the measurements a bit.
Yeah,
I want to talk to you about some particular parts in the measurements that we took with REW, but also the GLM system in a bit. But maybe first of all, there was that gigantic, very strong resonance at 42 hertz. You mentioned that before as
yeah.
well. That was really bad. That got suppressed to the largest extent. I mean, it's just at the border of where I say this type of treatment stops working. Like roughly the 40 hertz mark is where it
Yeah.
kind of you still get effectiveness, but that's where it really starts dropping off. And we can see that in the measurements in the waterfall as well. That there's remnants and there's still decay in the room below kind of the 40 hertz. Tell me about what it's like working with that still there. The fact that the lowest of the lowest frequencies kind of still ring a bit, and also what it's like in comparison with that resonance, basically to the largest extent being gone.
Yeah, well, it's night and day, I'd say. The music I make has very strong sub bass component, and so depending on the key of the track, sometimes your root note or not the root note falls into this resonance, and it just screws everything up.
Yeah,
You can't hear what you're doing. Adjust velocity on the sub bass because you don't hear things correctly, which is wrong because it's not supposed to be louder if it's different notes. I'm just playing a sine essentially, right? It's supposed to be the same level, but it would not be the same level at all. Hence, reaching for the headphones. Eventually, when I understood what was the case, thanks to just perception, but then confirmed by measurements.
Yeah.
I find that now with the treatment and the DSP that the Genelec things does, I don't modify the velocity of my sub bass frequencies. So it's a combination of the resonance being greatly reduced and also me knowing that it's there, right? Still, but it's greatly reduced. So yeah, also I hear the sub better. Like sometimes when it's extremely subby, you're unsure if the note is perfectly pitch perfect or not, right? Let's say you're using 808 sample, and so the 808 sample has a bit of a pitch drop right at the beginning. That's inherent to lots of 808s. Sometimes this 808 sample you find is a long decay of this pitch, right? So it doesn't sound pitch perfect. So what I do is take the sub bass part and put it up 2 octaves and then listen to it because it would be more noticeable this way. And more often than not, there was an issue, but now I don't have this pitch problem anymore. Like I can hear the sub things and determine that, let's say my 808 sample has a too long decay in pitch, and that's clearer to me. Which I don't know if it's logical, but it's clearly something I feel. So yeah, that's a big improvement. It's very also enjoyable to work in. The big kick thumps, just you feel them. That's always nice. That's what you want from a big kick. Big sub stabs, or the occasional sub bass drop, as an effect where you have this sub bass that goes down and down and down, super loud. That the subwoofer I got goes super low. So yeah, that's very enjoyable.
So it's not really an issue that the room, there's still some decay left for you at the bottom end there.
I'm pretty sure it could be made better, but on a day-to-day basis, it's fine. And the mixes I make seem to be perfectly okay when listening in the headphones or everywhere else really, or on the phone sometimes. What I do, just on the phone speaker, the last
an amazing sub bass on the phone.
Yeah, right. That's well, it tells you maybe you should put a bit of harmonics on the sub because otherwise you're missing. I mean, it's called drum and bass for a reason, right? There is bass in there. And if you don't hear the bass, you're like, it's called drums, and then
it's just drums.
Yeah, right.
And
so
like
it
clicks.
tells you might as well distort a bit, put some coloration on your sub. But yeah, no, it's the treatment plus the DSP has largely removed the problems I had in the sub bass at this level of treatment and for my skill level.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, that's why when people ask me about these room correction software, room correction software, I'm always just like, yeah, of course, use it, but make sure to put in as much effort as you're willing to do in the treatment and everything else first. And then right at the end, use it to kind of pick up the slack, anything that's left over. Because you don't want it to do too much work, or you do want it to do as little work as possible, but it is very, very useful. And especially certain things that you just can't fix with treatment, either because of how much effort you want to put in, or your budget, or the room's dimensions, size, ratios are still causing issues that are difficult to get rid of with kind of the means that we have. And then the software is really useful. Tell me a bit about the GLM report, so the GRADE report. That was, I think, quite interesting, just from a very top-level perspective, all red at the beginning, all green at the end.
Yeah, essentially. That's what happened. So So when they released the GRADE system, it was after I got the Genelec speakers and sub and little box that you have to connect everything into on the mic. So when it got released, I was like, yeah, well, this looks really nice. So you just click through on the interface and it does the measurement and then sends you the PDF, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I knew the room had problems. I mean, I didn't have to have dozens of pages of PDFs telling me that. I could hear that it had a problem. And I had done room EQ wizard measurement previously. So I also knew that there was problem and what some of the problems were. The report confirmed everything, so it was very in line with what I could measure with room EQ wizard, also understand by just listening to it. So that made me trust it, because it was just confirming everything, different visualization, different computation. So some things are nice. It was also ranking the monitoring system and saying like, is it suitable for monitoring in a mixing environment? Right? And it was saying no. that's what it was. That's what it used to say. Is that like clearly not? Like, don't even think about it.
Nah, forget it. Nah, it's not.
I was
good
like,
enough.
yeah, well, I thought I thought as much, but like, okay. So then what I did was, so I did all the build a better bass trap course, whatever. Like I did all of that, positioned the thing, then redid the grade report, right? So because I mean, you put so many treatment in the room, now you're going to redo the calibration. That's what I mean, they tell you, in fact, in the Genelec thing, they say, it's not very hard to redo the calibration. If you change meaningful things in the room, redo the calibration. It's easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did. The Genelec system, so send back the PDF. It was a lot more green. Like it was, in fact, all green, but it had a box very clearly marked that said, we think that one of your speakers is not positioned correctly out of the two. And it would tell me, I think it was the right one, if I recall correctly. They said, we are seeing too much difference on the right speaker compared to the left speaker, and it's weird. Like, I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but they said, like, you should fix something in the room and then redo this calibration and grade system grade report. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. So then I got my tape measure and crawled under the desk and looked at the panel's positioning and the speaker positioning. And yeah, one of the panel stack behind the right speaker was not positioned correctly. Well, not in the position I envisioned, right? And so I corrected that.
And so therefore the speaker was moved as well. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, because it was like
speaker,
right up against the panel.
I think there was a combination of it didn't have the right distance to my ear. It was too forward or too back, I don't remember. Also, it was angled incorrectly, but not completely off, but like enough that it was strange. And that the system would detect it and put a warning box and said, like, please just refix something in the room and redo the measurement. So then what I did was, so reposition the panel on the right-hand side behind the speaker, reposition the speaker, get a tape measure, kind of went like this, put the I've got a, ultrasound measuring device.
Okay.
Right. So you can put it on your head and rotate it. There is a laser, so you can see that the laser is on the speaker. Then rotate it the other way.
Okay.
See the laser is on the tweeter, and then look at the two measurements that it measured. And that's now down to a few millimeters. Of course, my head moves, right? Sorry, but I could tell. And then you redo the Genelec measurement thing. It's gonna measure travel time between mic and speaker, and there was now accurate down to 0.1 millisecond. So then it tells this fine. If it's not the same, then it tells you, but also it compensates in software. So it inserts a minuscule delay line so that the travel time is correct. Because I mean, I suppose it's possible to have a setup where the speakers are fixed and it's like you can't work around it. So they helpfully can insert a delay line in hardware, right? So there's no software running on the computer. So everything was then perfectly positioned. Redid the grade report generation. Everything was green. The box disappeared. It didn't say anything about meaningful difference between left and right. In fact, they display the left and right response, and they looked as similar as they could be, I guess. I mean, with micro variation of, because the measurements are not done at the same time, but yeah. It was so that's what I did, yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever turn off the GLM system? I guess you can't because it's in the speaker, right? Once you've uploaded
or you,
it,
you can do everything. It's very flexible. So
Okay.
it is in the speaker, but there is a little software on the PC where you can live tweak everything.
Okay.
You can remove things such as full range speaker calibration. You can also disengage bass subwoofer management. So it's going to correct for the phase, of course, but also crossover points. So you can disengage the sub management, and what's going to do then is going to send the full range audio data to the sub, and the crossover of the sub will do the work. Otherwise, it can also do the crossover and then send only the non-sub to the speakers. Does that make sense? So there is various ways. It's fairly flexible. And then if you're happy with a particular setup, you click a button, it sends everything to the speakers, and you don't have to think about it. But you can also, at any point in time, open up the software, tweaks everything's live, and save the presets, recall them. You can disengage everything. You can, yeah.
So it's a very flexible system.
Yeah, it's very good.
I mean, the kind of what I'm getting at more than anything is, do you like what's the how strong is the difference between the calibrated and non-calibrated version for you now?
It's very strong.
It's still very strong
in the sub area. Yeah. It's very strong
because of that bass misalignment, I guess.
Yeah, there is that, and also there is still a natural resonance of the room at a particular frequency.
Yeah,
and the GLM system finds it and removes it to a great extent. Right, it's not perfect, but with everything engaged, it's manageable. And without GLM, it's a lot better than it used to. But I have GLM, so why bother? I just activate it. And so, but yeah, it is. I can tell immediately.
Okay. Yeah.
I can tell if you give me a synth that is capable of producing sub-frequency and a piano keyboard, I can tell 100% if it's engaged or not, the GLM system.
Right.
I just go on the keyboard, play the notes, and then there's going to be some notes that are horribly loud compared to others. And yeah, that's it really. So it compensates for that nicely.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe that would be a reason in a year or two to take the next step in the plan.
Absolutely.
When you notice that you'd like the GLM to do less work.
Yeah. So he's doing some work, but he's doing a lot less work than he used to, because I still have screenshots of the previous filter setups that it used internally before the treatment. And obviously I can look it up now, how it is on the system. And so, yeah, when you look, it's a bit like looking before and after in Room EQ Wizard, right? Yeah. Except it's a different system that confirms the first system. Yeah. They do more or less the same measurements, and they also show more or less the same results. But yeah, certainly a lot less work, a lot less EQ is being applied now than it used to.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Paul, let's maybe leave it at that.
Yeah.
I think we covered a broad number of things here, and it's really amazing for you to take the time to join me and walk us through this process and give us your feedback, your opinion on how things are with you. Is there anything else you'd still like to say to round up? Anything you'd
apart
like to add?
The fact that that is really worth it? I don't know. Like that's been the case for me. There is part of it that says you can do it and then everything's better and that's it. But maybe you can do it, everything's better, and then you get better, and then you can make it even better, because it's a gradual process, right?
Yeah.
You've designed the panels, you can buy more panels.
Yeah.
That's also fine.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, generally extremely positive. Um, Music is better, I think. I make more music because it's nicer to work with, um, not as tiring. I do more of the things I like, which is producing, and less of the things I like, which is fighting a resonance in the low end.
Fighting the bass.
Yeah, right. And I can listen to reverb. Things sound nice, And
Amazing.
that's not very complicated answer, but I think it's the right answer.
I mean,
It's like everything's
that's what
better.
it's all about, really, right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
It
it doesn't
is.
need to be complicated. Yeah.
No, no. In fact, it wasn't very complicated. You just do the thing that is in the course, and then it's better. There you go.
Amazing.
It's
Sweet,
not
Paul.
very
Well,
complicated.
it's not. Well, thanks again so much. And yeah, for everybody out there, like, I was going to ask you, I'm going to link to, if you'd allow me to link to the grade report.
Sure.
I'll put those below in the description. And obviously, for anybody else, like if you want to get into this, the link to the course is going to be in the description. If you're just wondering what this entire process looks like from a top level, I've got a home studio treatment framework that you can also download for free. That's at the top of the description. It's basically my 5-step process to treating a home studio, walking you through that exact process from start to finish, exactly like Paul did. And so if you want to follow along in your studio, make sure you download that. Again, it's completely for free at the link in the description. But yeah, Paul, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I hope you have many years of pleasurable music making in the studio. And yeah, thanks again for joining.
Thanks.